Chance encounters. The rain fell in sheets across the small countryside train station of Millfield, a forgotten stop on the rural line connecting to London. Olivia Bennet clutched her portfolio case tighter against her chest, silently cursing. Her decision to wear heels today of all days. The interview at Thornfield Research Institute was her one shot at breaking into scientific journalism after years of writing fluff pieces for local papers, delayed by 3 hours due to flooding. On the tracks, announced the tinny speaker overhead, its message nearly drowned by thunder. Olivia's shoulders slumped as she checked her watch. 3 hours would make her catastrophically late. She fumbled for her phone to email the institute, only to find a dead punishment for the podcast marathon that had kept her company on the journey. "Excuse me?" she called to the station attendant. "Is there any other way to reach Thornfield today?" The elderly man shook his head sympathetically. "Not unless you've got wings, miss. Roads flooded too." Olivia slumped onto a bench, fighting back tears of frustration. Years of rejection letters flashed through her mind, each one pushing her dreams further away. This interview had been a miracle, responding to her speculative application about documenting the Institute's climate research. The weather itself seemed determined to sabotage her. "Pardon me," came a voice like warm honey, but I couldn't help overhearing. "You're trying to reach Thornfield?" She looked up to see a man in his 30s with rain-darkened sandy hair and kind eyes, wearing a worn leather jacket that had seen better days. He carried a battered messenger bag covered in patches from various countries. "Yes," she sighed. "Have an interview that I'm going to miss spectacularly." "I'm Julian," he offered with a slight smile. "And as it happens, I know a back road that usually stays above the flood line. I'm driving there myself." Olivia hesitated. Getting into cars with strangers wasn't exactly smart, but neither was missing this opportunity. "I'm Olivia," she replied cautiously. "You work at Thornfield?" Something flickered across his face. "Consult there occasionally?" "Look, I understand the hesitation. Call someone and tell them you're getting a ride with Julian Reed." "The station has a landline behind the counter?" The attendant nodded in confirmation. "Known Mr. Reed for years?" "Quiet fellow, but reliable." 20 minutes later, they were navigating narrow country lanes in Julian's modest older model Volvo. The car was immaculately maintained, but clearly chosen for function rather than flash. "So, what's the interview for?" Julian asked expertly, handling a particularly sharp turn. "Scientific journalism position. They're documenting their climate resilience project," Olivia explained, relaxing slightly. "I've been trying to break into serious journalism for years." "Why scientific journalism? Specifically?" His question seemed genuinely curious, rather than merely polite, Olivia considered. "Science tells the most important stories of our time, but often in languages most people can't access. I want to translate those stories." Julian nodded thoughtfully. "That's refreshingly passionate. Nice. Most journalists I've encountered are more interested in sensationalizing than translating." "That's the problem, isn't it? Science becomes either impenetrably academic or dumbed down to clickbait. There's rarely a middle ground." The conversation flowed easily as they wound through the countryside. Julian asked insightful questions about her background, her master's in environmental science, her struggle to find meaningful work, her vision for communicating complex research to the public. "The Institute's doing groundbreaking work," Julian remarked as they approached a sprawling modern complex nestled into the hillside. "Their director, Dr. Eleanor Winters, doesn't suffer fools gladly, but she respects authenticity. Just be yourself." They pulled up to the entrance, Olivia noticed. Julian didn't park in the visitor area. "Aren't you coming in?" she asked. "Different entrance for consultants," he explained. "Good luck, Olivia. I have a feeling you're exactly what they need." Before she could thank him properly, he'd handed her a business card with just a phone number. No name or title, and driven away. The receptionist looked surprised when Olivia mentioned Julian's name. "Mr. Reed dropped you off personally? That's unexpected." Olivia wondered what made it so unusual as she was led toward the interview room, unaware that her life had just changed irrevocably. Hidden Truths. "Welcome to Thornfield Research Institute, Miss Bennet." Dr. Eleanor Winters was a striking woman in her 50s, with silver-streaked black hair pulled into a severe bun. Her penetrating gaze seemed to evaluate Olivia at the molecular level. Your timing is impeccable. Despite the weather, Olivia settled into her chair, still slightly damp from the rain. I was fortunate to meet someone kind enough to drive me. Yes, Julian Reed. Dr. Winter's expression shifted subtly. Fortuitous encounter. The interview proceeded with unexpected ease. Dr. Winters seemed genuinely interested in Olivia's ideas about communicating scientific concepts to the public. By the end, Olivia was offered the position on the space, an unprecedented occurrence. According to the wide-eyed HR representative who processed her paperwork afterward, the Serendipity project requires immediate documentation, Dr. Winters explained. You'll have unprecedented access to our research, though certain aspects remain classified until publication. 2 weeks later, Olivia had settled into a small cottage in Millfield Village and immersed herself in the Institute's groundbreaking work. The Serendipity project, she learned, was researching mathematical patterns and seemingly random beneficial encounters. Encounters essentially the science behind fortunate coincidences. It was fascinating work, combining elements of probability theory, sociology, and even quantum mechanics. Despite her thorough orientation, one question remained unanswered. Who was funding this ambitious research? The scientists mentioned only the founder, a mysterious benefactor who had established the Institute 5 years earlier with a revolutionary vision. Curiously, Julian Reed was nowhere to be found. When Olivia asked about him, she received vague responses about his consulting schedule. The business card he'd given her connected to a voicemail that was never returned. Meanwhile, across London, in a minimalist penthouse apartment, Julian Reedbirth, named Julian Harlow, stared at financial projections for Horizon Innovations, the technology company he had built from nothing. At 34, he had revolutionized sustainable energy storage, making him one of Britain's wealthiest individuals. Yet almost no one knew his face. Board is getting restless about your anonymity, Julian said his assistant Priya, placing a cup of tea beside his laptop. They're suggesting it's time for Horizon to have a public face. Julian sighed, running a hand through his hair. The moment I become Julian Harlow, tech billionaire, the work stops being about the technology and starts being about me. I've seen it happen too many times. The Thornfield Institute can't remain anonymously funded forever, Priya reminded him. The scientific community is already speculating. Julian's thoughts drifted to Olivia Bennett. Her passion for communicating science had struck him deeply, so different from the polished, calculated journalist who had previously attempted to uncover his identity. There was something authentic about her determination. Perhaps it's time for a controlled revelation, Julian conceded. But on my terms, through someone who understands the importance of the work itself. The next morning, Olivia was summoned to Dr. Winter's office. The founder has requested someone document the history and vision of the Institute, the director explained. I've recommended you for the assignment. But I've only been here 2 weeks, Olivia protested. Precisely. You bring fresh eyes, untainted by years of scientific dogma. Dr. Winters handed her a dossier. You'll meet the founder tomorrow at Horizon Innovations headquarters. Until then, this should provide context. That evening, Olivia pored over the materials. Horizon Innovations had emerged from nowhere 5 years ago with revolutionary battery technology that had accelerated renewable energy adoption worldwide. Its founder remained anonymous, communicating only through representatives and legal proxies. The connection was clear. Horizon's profits funded Thornfield's research. But why the secrecy? And why choose her for this pivotal documentation? As rain again lashed against her cottage windows, Olivia found herself thinking of Julian Reed and their conversation during that stormy drive. Something about his questions, his insights into scientific communication, now seemed more significant than casual interest. She pulled out his business card, examining it more carefully. The paper was expensive, the minimalist design elegant. On a whim, she held it under her ultraviolet reading light and gasped. Previously invisible, an embossed Horizon line appeared across the card, identical to the Horizon Innovations logo. Suddenly, everything connected. Julian Reed wasn't just a consultant. He was the founder, the mysterious benefactor behind both Horizon and Thornfield. And tomorrow, she would meet him officially, though he had no idea she had discovered his secret. Olivia sat back, mind racing. Why had he helped her that day? Was her hiring mere coincidence, or something more deliberate? The Serendipity Project suddenly felt uncomfortably personal, as if she herself had become an unwitting research subject in a study of fortunate encounters. The revelation: the Horizon Innovations headquarters occupied a renovated Victorian warehouse in East London, its brick exterior maintaining historical character, while the interior showcased cutting-edge sustainable design. Olivia felt distinctly underdressed as she was escorted through the lobby by an impeccably tailored receptionist. "Mr. Harlow is expecting you," the woman said, leading her to a private elevator. Olivia's heartbeat quickened. Would Mr. Harlow reveal himself as Julian Reed, or had she constructed an elaborate fantasy from coincidental clues? The elevator opened directly into a sunlit office with panoramic views of the Thames. Standing by the window, back turned to her, was a figure in a charcoal suit. Couldn't disguise the familiar posture she recognized from their drive through the rainstorm. "Ms. Bennett," he said, turning to face her with those same kind eyes she remembered. "Welcome to Horizon." "Mr. Reed," she replied carefully, "or should I say Mr. Harlow?" A smile tugged at his lips. "You figured it out sooner than expected. Please, sit. I imagine you have questions." About how?" Olivia confirmed, taking a seat across from him. Starting with why one of Britain's most successful tech entrepreneurs was playing shofar during a thunderstorm. Julian Harlow settled into his chair. "I value perspective untainted by preconceptions. People know who I am. They see what I represent, not who I am. That day at the station, I was just a person helping another person." Ow. "My job at Thornfield? Was that your doing as well? I mentioned you to Dr. Winters, but the decision was entirely hers. Eleanor doesn't hire anyone as a favor, not even to me." Olivia studied him, searching for signs of the manipulative billionaire archetype she'd encountered in previous assignments. Instead, she found the same thoughtful presence that had put her at ease during their first meeting. "Why reveal yourself now? And why to me?" Julian leaned forward. "The Serendipity Project has reached a critical phase. We've identified mathematical patterns in what most would dismiss as coincidence. The findings could fundamentally change how we understand human connection, innovation, even evolution. But the science is complex, the implications profound. We need someone who can translate this work without sensationalizing or oversimplifying. And you think that's me? Based on one conversation? Based on your work, your background, and yes, that conversation?" He slid a folder across the desk. "Your articles show remarkable ability to convey complex concepts with integrity. But it was watching you speak about science communication with such genuine passion that convinced me." Olivia opened the folder to find copies of every article she'd ever published, even university papers, annotated with thoughtful comments. The thoroughness was both impressive and unsettling. "Most people would find this level of research invasive," she observed. Perhaps Julian acknowledged. "I prefer thorough. The Serendipity Project isn't just another research initiative. It's my life's purpose beyond even what Horizon has accomplished. I need someone who understands its importance. Why keep your identity secret for so long?" Expression tightened. "My previous company was acquired by investors who cared only about quarterly profits. Revolutionary technology was shelved because its development timeline exceeded shareholder patience. I vowed never to let that happen again. Horizon remains private, and my anonymity has protected both it and Thornfield from the distortions of public attention." As their conversation deepened, Olivia began to understand. Julian Harlow wasn't hiding out of arrogance or paranoia, but from a profound desire to let the work speak for itself. His wealth was a tool, not an identity. "The documentation project has 2 phases," Julian explained. "First, chronicling Thornfield's work for the scientific community. Second, preparing for limited public revelation of my role and Horizon's connection to the research." "And you're trusting me with both?" Yes, his directness was startling. But you should know what you're agreeing to. Once you're publicly associated with me and this project, your life will change. Privacy becomes a luxury. Intentions become questioned. Are you prepared for that? Olivia considered his warning. Her career ambitions had never included becoming entangled with a billionaire's secretive research empire, yet the project itself, understanding. The science behind life-changing moments of serendipity fascinated her deeply. I need time to think, she said finally. Julian nodded. Of course. But there's something else you should see first. He stood, gesturing toward a private elevator. Different from the one she'd arrived in. The real heart of what we're doing. The serendipity theory, 6 months later. Olivia stood backstage at the Royal Institution, watching hundreds of scientists, journalists, and industry leaders file into the historic lecture hall. Her published documentation of the Serendipity Project had created a sensation in scientific circles, but today would mark its official public unveiling, along with Julian Harlow's first-ever public appearance as Horizon's founder. Nervous? Julian appeared beside her, adjusting his tie. Terrified, she admitted. You strangely calm. Once you accept the inevitability of change, fear becomes pointless. Their relationship had evolved into something neither could isolate. Defined deeper than colleagues, more complex than friends. Yet constrained by professional boundaries, both hesitated to cross. The presentation began with Dr. Winters explaining the scientific foundations of the project. Then came Olivia's portion, translating the complex research into compelling narratives about how seemingly random encounters had shaped history, technology, and human connection. Finally, Julian took the stage. The audience murmured in surprise at his youth and unassuming presence, so different from the mythical figure speculation had constructed. The serendipity theory proposes that what we call coincidence often follows discoverable patterns, Julian began. But understanding these patterns isn't about controlling them. It's about creating environments where meaningful connections become more probable. He revealed how Horizon had redesigned its headquarters based on the research, creating spaces that maximize creative collisions between employees from different departments. The result? Innovation rates had increased by 60% in 2 years. But the implications extend far beyond corporate innovation, Julian continued. Imagine cities designed to increase meaningful human connection, healthcare systems that recognize the role of community in healing, educational institutions that foster the seemingly random interactions that spark lifelong passions. As Julian spoke, Olivia watched Richard Blackwood in the audience, his expression shifting from skepticism to grudging interest. The hostile takeover attempt had been neutralized when Julian presented the board with irrefutable evidence of the Serendipity Project's commercial applications Blackwood had dismissed as theoretical. Julian concluded by addressing the question of his long anonymity. I believed separation between creator and creation was possible, even preferable. I was wrong. True innovation requires authentic human connection, including the willingness to be seen, even imperfectly. The standing ovation that followed confirmed what Olivia had suspected. Julian's vision, finally expressed in his own voice, was powerful enough to overcome even the most entrenched skepticism. At the reception afterward, Julian navigated his newly public status with surprising grace, while Olivia found herself approached by publishers offering book deals and research institutions requesting collaborations. Quite a change from struggling to get freelance assignments, observed Dr. Winters, appearing beside her with 2 champagne flutes. I'm still processing it, Olivia admitted, accepting the drink. The question is, what will you do next? Contract with Thornfield concludes next week. Before Olivia could respond, Julian joined them. If I might interrupt, Eleanor, I'd like a moment with Ms. Bennett. Dr. Winters departed with a knowing smile, leaving them in a momentary island of privacy amid the crowded reception. I have a proposition, Julian said, leading Olivia toward a quieter corner. Horizon is establishing a new division focused on applying the serendipity theory to global challenges, climate resilience, public health, sustainable urban design. It needs a director of communication and ethical framework development. Sounds like an impressive title, Olivia remarked. Title is less important than the person holding it. Someone who understands both the science and its human implications. Someone unafraid to challenge assumptions, including mine. Are you offering me a job, Mr. Harlow? I'm offering you a partnership. His directness caught her off guard. Professional, primarily, but perhaps with room for evolution. Olivia studied him carefully. This isn't serendipity anymore. It's deliberate choice. Perhaps that's the ultimate revelation of the project, Julian suggested. Serendipity creates opportunities, but conscious choice determines their significance. Beside the venerable institution, rain began falling on London, not unlike the storm that had first brought them together. Through the window, Olivia cooed. See Millfield Station on the horizon, coming full circle. Before I answer, she said, I need to know something. That day at the station, was it truly coincidence, or had you engineered our meeting? Julian's expression softened. I was at Millfield that day because the algorithms predicted a significant confluence. Note a moment when multiple paths would intersect in potentially meaningful ways. Oh, I didn't know it would be you specifically. I just knew something important might happen if I was present and paying attention. So you followed a mathematical prediction to a random train station and just ... waited. I've built my life on recognizing patterns others dismiss, Julian said simply. That day, the pattern led me to you. Olivia considered all that had transpired. Since that rainy afternoon, how a missed train had led to discovered purpose, how two parallel paths had gradually converged through choice as much as chance. I accept your offer, she said finally, both parts of it. As they sealed their new partnership with a lingering embrace that promised more, neither noticed Dr. Winters watching from across the room, making a note in the Serendipity Project's ongoing research log. Hypothesis confirmed. Pattern recognition plus conscious action creates outcomes exceeding statistical probability. Some would call it destiny. At Thornfield, they called it science. But in that moment, for Julian and Olivia, it was simply the beginning of a story they would write together. Part chance, part choice, wholly transformative. Parallel paths, the elevator descended deep below London streets, eventually opening to reveal an unexpected sight. A vast chamber filled with what appeared to be thousands of glowing blue threads suspended in midair, intersecting at various points to form luminous nodes. Welcome to the confluence, Julian said softly. The physical manifestation of the Serendipity Project's findings. Olivia stepped forward in awe. What am I looking at? A quantum neural visualization of significant human connections mapped across London over the past 3 years. Each thread represents a person's path. Each intersection, a meaningful encounter. As Olivia moved through the space, the threads seemed to respond, shifting slightly as if acknowledging her presence. Julian explained that the model combined anonymized data from public transportation, mobile networks, and social media, processed through algorithms developed at Thornfield. We're not just observing coincidences, he continued. We're beginning to predict them and potentially influence them. The ethical implications hit Olivia immediately. You could engineer chance meetings, theoretically, but that's precisely why this work needs proper documentation and ethical frameworks before going public. In the wrong hands, it could become manipulation on an unprecedented scale. Over the following weeks, Olivia divided her time between Thornfield and Horizon. Immersing herself in both the science and the story behind it, she interviewed researchers, reviewed data, and spent long hours with Julian, understanding his vision. Working relationship evolved into something neither had anticipated. Julian found in Olivia someone who challenged his assumptions without agenda. She found in him a mind that connected disparate concepts in revelatory ways. Their conversations often continued long after work hours, ranging from scientific ethics to philosophy to shared childhood memories of Stagund. At Thornfield, Olivia became part of the research team in all but title. Her questions often pushed the scientists to explain their work more clearly, sometimes revealing new avenues of investigation. Dr. Winters observed their collaboration with knowing eyes but maintained professional distance. You're falling for him, remarked Olivia's new friend Delia, quantum physicist at the Institute, during a rare evening at the village pub. I'm fascinated by the work, Olivia deflected. The work, yes. The man behind it. Delia sipped her cider. Yes, remember. Relationships with billionaires aren't exactly straightforward. Trust me, my ex-wife's family owns half of Singapore. Meanwhile, Julian faced increasing pressure from Horizon's board. His chief financial officer, Richard Blackwood, argued forcefully for taking the company public. Your anonymity is costing us opportunities, Richard insisted during a tense meeting. Competitors are moving into our space. Without your public endorsement, contracts are going elsewhere. The technology speaks for itself, Julian countered. Technology doesn't shake hands or inspire confidence in conservative investors, Richard retorted. And your obsession with this Thornfield project is diverting resources we can't afford to waste. The balance Julian had maintained for years was becoming unsustainable. His growing personal connection with Olivia complicated matters. Further, their professional relationship had developed clear undertones that neither acknowledged directly. The turning point came unexpectedly. During a late-night review session at Julian's penthouse, Olivia discovered documents indicating Richard Blackwood had been secretly meeting with competitors, positioning himself to lead a hostile restructuring of Horizon's leadership. He's planning to push you out, she told Julian. And his first move would be shutting down the Thornfield funding. Julian absorbed this betrayal with surprising calm. Perhaps it's inevitable. Been fighting the natural progression of success. For years, maybe it's time to let go. Let go of everything you've built, everything you believe in. Olivia was incredulous. What's the alternative? Become the public figure I've avoided becoming? Play the celebrity CEO game I despise? Or find a third option, Olivia challenged. Use the Serendipity project itself not as manipulation, but as inspiration. Show the world why meaningful connection matters more than personality cults or quarterly profits. Something shifted in Julian's expression, a recognition, perhaps that he'd been approaching the problem from the wrong angle. That night, they worked until dawn, formulating a strategy that would protect both Horizon and Thornfield while transforming how the public understood innovation itself. As sunrise bathed London in golden light, they stood together on Julian's balcony, the boundary between colleague and something more increasingly blurred. Whatever happens next, Julian said quietly, meeting you that day at Millfield Station wasn't just serendipity, it was transformation.